yeah, next month. Anyway, I can share experience from 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 my many years in professional life. The other one is entrepreneurship. The last person you should talk about entrepreneurship with is probably government worker. Huh? But but every day in India, I do see lots of opportunities, and I question myself almost daily. Okay, who can I provide this opportunity to, or should I, take this opportunity for myself? Because I see, the opportunities. At the moment, I'm just passing on the information, usually to people that I have come into contact with, commercially valuable information based on my experience in India. But one thing that I am is that I am adaptable, because throughout my whole career, I've never done bilateral work, which means, one country to another. From what ma'am said, all of my past career is multilateral work, so, and yet I'm posted to India. So you have to use what skill sets you have, to the maximum advantage. I think mine would be in the economic side. But then I have number two, who's very good in the political side and culture and so on, So you have to form your team so that you cover all the bases. But one thing that I am is I can market my Thainess, okay? And for all the things that people like about Thailand or Thai people, I think I represent many of them, if not all. Okay, so that qualifies me. So this is the same as skills and entrepreneurship. I'm not qualified, so what did I do? I looked at a lot of YouTube, and then I wrote my ideas down on paper. And I also read the concept paper, which is, circulated around. And I find that, so my first point here is that context is important as well. If we're talking about northeastern region of India, something that applies for the whole of India and where India is going, where India is in the world and so on, might not be as relevant to the context of northeastern region of India. Okay, ASEAN, people like me and the other 9 ambassadors, high commissioners, we are often told by government of India that you have to help develop NER, NER's northeastern region, so on. Why? Because it's next to Myanmar and next to you, okay? But we also want to make money, from the Indian market. So when I go to my companies and say, please consider northeastern region, they say, sir, the market is too small. We can help by setting up in Uttar Pradesh, 220 million, and we can export all our products here. Yesterday, I also said about timing is everything. Let's say Lao colleagues, the time of Laos will come. It may not be now, you may not be like Switzerland now, but it doesn't mean that you cannot, right? And the time will come, but you must work towards that time, work towards your time. A lot of people, Laos doesn't complain about it, but a lot of countries complain about being landlocked. I've lived and worked in Switzerland for over 7 years, 2 times. They've never complained, about being landlocked. They've always made the most of the opportunities that they have. So the Swiss watches, those are made by, the precision engineering, watches, they started from the farmers. During the winter season, they don't have anything to do. So they work on, they made watches. And it's still true to today. The story of Switzerland is so empowering, how can they excel in so many things? Financial services, hotel services, hospitality services, watches, and so on and so forth. So let the story of Switzerland, you know, be empower you about can do. They even have a navy. They don't have a sea, but I'm told they have a navy. But they park their ship somewhere else, you see. So anyway, so it's about context. So let's say, let me say a little bit about Northeastern region. Maybe today I have to say it. I've said it again and again, you know. You will only see some parts of Northeastern region of India, but I've been to many states, not all. I still think I'm missing 3 out of 8, but it's rich in natural resources and also cultural resources. Personally, I think that, you know, like when people are saying, please set up your chicken factory, do this, that, food processing and so on, I think the time is not yet the right time. The time will come when the trilateral highway is up and humming along. Border trade will be massive. You know, in the same way when you guys were presenting, you know, Cambodia, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, and especially Laos and Cambodia. A lot of your trade is with Thailand, right? That represents border trade. And border trade is such a lucrative business for us as well. That's going to happen on the India-Myanmar border, but it's waiting for the right time. It will come. So Northeastern region also has beautiful touristic resources, you know. The flights already beginning to come, but I've always maintained that we need to develop the tourist industry. You know, most of the service personnel on airlines like Indigo and in the 5-star hotels in New Delhi are from Northeastern region, mainly Manipur. You know, I always ask them, where are you from? Because they look, you know, you've seen from the dances yesterday, right? They look more like people from Southeast Asia, in some states. And I find that the most common answer I get from like Leela Palace in Delhi is Manipur. And they're very service oriented and so on and so forth. And Indigo uses them a lot. So there's strength in this area, in hospitality and so on and so forth. So you have to play to your strengths, you know. The other thing is, like in this region, a lot of agriculture and a lot of handicrafts, you know, from natural products. But I showed them a picture of, you know, bamboo is very common. Then somebody showed me a picture of bamboo in Myanmar. What did they do? When the bamboo was still small, they built frame, you know, 4 pieces of wood around the bamboo. And so it came out square, right? And then when you make coaster or make products, it's square bamboo. Like in Japan, they do square watermelon. And you can, they charge so much for that, right? So those are the kinds of things that you need to do. I went to Mizoram, I think Manipur also, because our Princess Mahachakri Chutintorn, she's visited India 18 times. I learned, because it's Chinese New Year, she visited China 44 times. So she's a better diplomat than us, and she helps with our bilateral ties. Anyway, but she wants to visit all of the Northeastern region, and she's especially interested in tribal culture. So when we visited, I noticed that I wanted to buy souvenirs. I think it was from Mizoram. So we went to the first shop. All the souvenirs were on the floor in you know, stacked together, very dusty. 800 rupees. And next shop, better organized, but 800. And then the final shop, run by young people. I think they still qualify under UN definition. 1,500, but the store had some style, you know? And sometimes they decorated with local products, you know, to add value. And that, even something like that can be can make a difference, you know, of 100%. And it's much more pleasant for the tourists as well. So I find that, I was thinking that if I came, and if they wanted to learn, even I can teach something, you know, to improve. I mean, because at least I can give the perspective of my experience, or I can share the perspective of customer. Because whatever you do, even as a diplomat, one of the basic skills is that, I would say, empathy, you know? You have to understand the other person, or be the other person, or put yourself in the other person's position. That's a basic life skill, you know, but you cannot take it for granted. Not everyone does that. Another one for Thai diplomat, I would say, would be a word I like, which is humility, you know. I don't know, maybe in business, you have to talk big. You know, my company, we are this, that, and the other, we are the biggest, and so on and so forth. But in terms of Thailand branding, we have to be humble. Okay, so that's something that, now, I'm trying to, you know, relate to Northeastern region, but also to you guys. Let me just come back and forth. Northeastern region, there's a lot of agriculture going on, right? But it's still basic. I remember that I went to World Food India, preparation for World Food India. There were a lot of ambassadors invited, and I thought, I always see, you know, where I stand in that group, you know. And hey, we're the 12th largest food exporter in the world. Not too bad, huh? Today I can walk a bit tall, you know, but if we're like number 193, maybe I should decide not to go or be even more humble, you know. So I thought, hey, 12, not too bad. 2.7 billion per month, okay? Then I looked at data. Data is very important, you know, from National Food Institute of Thailand. Number one, USA, $10 billion per month, okay? Then the next one is 7 billion. Most of these are Western Europe. Then you have the 5 billions, and then you have the twos. We are higher among the twos, you know, 2.7. But then you see, if we're going to be the fives, or the sevens, or the tens, we have to do more than just can the tuna, or put the corn in a can, or, you know, because if you sell corn on the cob as animal feed or whatever, you're not going to make as much as the Americans who sell Pop Secret microwave popcorn, right? You know, so it's all about value add, and it's the same here. Northeastern region, I can understand why MEA would ask us to sort of help each other, because we have been through the same thing. In Thailand, we have massive problem in the past about growing opium, okay? We're part of the Golden Triangle, and you should visit the Golden Triangle. It was on the PowerPoint by the Thai colleagues, Chiang Rai, you know, and every time we have visitors at conference in Chiang Rai, and then they have time, they will come back to me and say, oh, I visited the Golden Triangle, and I took a boat ride to Myanmar and Laos. In one day, I went to three countries that had passports stamped. But what we had to do at that point in time is to find some crop. Number one, make them not want to grow poppy. Number two, find them, hill tribes people, means of livelihood that would match or at least be close to what they would get from poppy. And in the end, you know, it was possible. So they grew, you know, strawberries, asparagus, coffee, but the other one, macadamia. And, you know, and there's a chart showing if you raw macadamia, this is how much you get. You put it in coffee and so on and so forth. And, you know, from basic price, the value add can be so high, okay? So now we consume less poppy, but more coffee. That's also another trend that started in Thailand, you know. we never, my young colleagues now, 10 o'clock they have to go and get coffee. 4 o'clock they go and get coffee. That was a market that was not there, you know. When I grew up, we didn't have to have coffee every now and again. Now Thais are great drinkers of coffee. And I can also tell the Chief Minister of Assam today that in Thailand we have convenience stores, 7-Eleven, and they now have also, they sell coffee, you know, and they also sell tea, but they're also going to source their tea from Assam, okay? But of course, the farmer in Assam is going to get this price, and once it's made into tea and sold in 7-Eleven stores, it's another price, you know, the value add. And that's what we need to do in northeastern region. Let's talk about, so I'll just go past this point. One is for startups, the biggest challenge is financing, okay? But now with IT, you have more choices, you know? For young people, if you think that you just have to go to the bank, it's not that easy, right? Because I used to be on the board of the Thailand's Exim Bank, and they had an easy time, you know, just giving loans to the big multinationals. But that's not helping the micro, small, and medium enterprises, right? So the government told them that you better concentrate more on the micro, small, and medium enterprises. So if you're an MSME, or in the Philippines, they like to say, miss me. During APEC Philippines here, you know, and say, miss me. So if you're in one of the miss me's, you can, now you also have more choices, because what I learned from YouTube is for the future job market, you know, to keep more people employed, we're going to have to rely on the miss me's, okay? And a lot of you guys will probably have independent businesses. In Thailand, that is now the most popular route. My daughter, she's 26. She, you know, people say, you know, why doesn't she become like you? Number one, I don't want her to become like me. Because in government service now, Thailand is changing. We've become more like the US, maybe in a bad way, litigation. So in the old days, you work for government, you make sacrifice, you work for the greater good, you get less pay than in the private sector. It's better, but it's still less than private sector. But now, in addition, you have litigation. You get sued left, right, and center because Thai society has become like that. So I tell young colleagues, you know, that growth industry, lawyer, because everyone is suing each other like mad, you know. And she said, no, I don't want to work for government. I don't want to wear a uniform. And like me and my father, I never asked my father what I should do, you know, and she never asked me. Okay, and she has a different lifestyle. And I noticed that young people now change jobs more often, you know, than like my story will not be repeated among you guys, okay? So the other point is, I suppose, artificial intelligence. And should you worry? I think that there's always, I mean, this world is not populated by computers, right? So, you know, there will always be place for humans. And there's some skills that computers or artificial intelligence cannot replicate, you know, things that I mentioned before, like soul, empathy, humility, and so on. Imagine trying to do a sale through, you know, if you had one of the most intelligent computer, actually we do sale via computers, you know. I mean, there's selling all the time on the internet and so on and so forth. But like for some deals, you still need to see the person, right? And have an assessment. Maybe all the numbers are correct, you know, but the chemistry is not right. His eyes are too close to each other or something, I don't know, you know. So there will always be a place for you, and you have to see change as enabling, okay? So I'm probably not the right person because to talk about what you should do for the future, because I'm going to be part of the past already. But humans have always adapted, you know, and I find that the world today, it has more opportunities than before, and it's more equal, you know, like my own ministry. When I joined, you either had to be from elite or diplomats' kids like me. Why? Number one, because those people had the educational opportunity, okay? It's not because, you know, he's a lord or she's a princess or whatever, you know, but it's because we had the educational opportunity. But now, my ministry, among my colleagues at the embassy, there are 10 diplomats, 6 are women, 4 are men, and I think there are 2 or 3 at the most that are from Bangkok. And I'm proud of that, because it means that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is no longer an ivory tower, you know, and it reflects more society that is outside. So I'll start with that, and I think I would, you know, if I can help you guys in any way, I would like that. That's another thing that we learn from executive training, you know, and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars. Clapping is free.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your remarks, and ending with this positive note that there's always space for humans, and talking about empathy and humility. Yeah. And the one important message that we got from your speech was the youth, you have to be enablers of change. And though you talked about the context of Northeast is certainly important, and the challenges that you rightly raised about the small market in the Northeast and the problem of financing for the startups. These are certainly important challenges. Let me also tell you that just last week I had the opportunity to travel on the India-Myanmar Thailand road, and in fact I traveled from Moreh, crossed the border to Tamu, and finally I went up till Mandalay. And though we do not have a direct bus, and we've been talking about this, maybe by 2020 we can have, and we can travel up from Moreh, crossing Myanmar, we can go up till Thailand, but still there is immense scope. And though we talk about small market in the Northeast or problem of financing, and there are a number of other procedural challenges, but you talk to the people on both sides of the border, there are huge expectations, and certainly there are immense scope in the field of tourism, as it was rightly pointed by you, hospitality, and particularly health sector. That is very important. And certainly we also need to work more on the agricultural innovation, probably. That is one area that needs to be explored. With these words, let me now call upon...
May I just add something? Sorry. That the other thing I forgot to mention is e-commerce, because that shrinks distances, you know, even places in Australia. And I put one story on Twitter the other day, which is a Thai producer of cosmetics. It's called Snail White, okay? And they went on Alibaba, and last year they sold 535 million baht. You times that by 2, so it's over $1 billion rupees, you know, just on e-commerce platform. So thank you.
Now let me call upon Mr. Doval, who is a private equity professional and a public policy thinker. He's the managing director of Zeus Caps, where he leads the principal investment initiatives and deal originations in India. He also serves on the board of governors of India Foundation.
Thank you. Well, fortunately for me, His Excellency has covered most of the points. So my life has become, will become much easier. But I will take it from where he sort of left it and be slightly more provocative. And since he sort of gave it in his personal context, you know, every session is different. I'm doing it, sir, for the 3rd time now. But I'll give you my own context, and then I will try and explain some of the points. So, you know, I am a first-generation entrepreneur who also obviously now dabbles a little bit in public life. But essentially, you know, today's topic is entrepreneurship and skill development. Now, I wasn't from a family of entrepreneurs. As a matter of fact, I come from a part of India which is essentially a martial race. We generally wear the uniform, and it was my first generation that I didn't join the armed forces. My father was a career bureaucrat, so there was nobody in my family who had ever ventured into entrepreneurship. I, by training and background, was also a professional. So I graduated here in India, then went on to do my chartered accountancy, then went on to do my MBA at Chicago, and was an investment banker at Wall Street for many years, both in New York and London, when about now close to 12 years ago, I decided to become an entrepreneur. And of course, I am an entrepreneur in an area of my choice, or my professional training, which is private equity. But the reason I give you this background is because whenever we think historically as entrepreneurship, we think entrepreneurship is an art, and skill development is a science. And much of this thinking has come from the old industrial revolution, where we thought that majority of the population must be trained to work in factories in the old times when manufacturing was predominant, and then as service sector came, they started working in service industries. But much of our education and training is geared to produce people to work for somebody. And then there were this small minority of people who were entrepreneurs. And in historical context, it was either assumed two things. Either they were from the privileged class, that is, they had, fortunately, either the connections in society or the capital to start something, and therefore that was a gating item for others who could not become entrepreneurs. Or they were phenomenally brilliant people, or emotionally, or they had some magic trait called entrepreneurship, which allowed them to become very successful and create businesses, and therefore employ people, ordinary people like us, to work for them. And that continued since 1700s after the Industrial Revolution. I think in the last few years, particularly with the onset of the digital space, and maybe from the turn of the century, that is going to change very significantly. It has already changed. And I think the rate of that change we will feel in years to come at a much greater pace. Where my personal thesis is that entrepreneurship and skill development are not two different things, but are the two sides of the same coin. And entrepreneurship is no longer an art. It is as much a skill as any other skill that is taught to you in school. So as you learn mathematics, as you learn physics, as you learn plumbing, you learn engineering, you can learn entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurship is not something, as I said, in the old times, when that you needed either just connections or capital, or is some unique trait that only a few possess. Its way of teaching is also a bit different. So historical thinking of education is between a teacher and a student. But as modern technology is telling us that training is not a one-time affair. It is actually a continuous process in our lives, and will be so more in your lives as you go, because as you mentioned, you will not have one career. See, I am 45, sir. I have already finished one career for 25 years as a banker. And I am now embarking on possibly my second career. And it's not a matter of choice for me, because what my grandfather and my father probably earned in their entire lifetimes, I as an investment banker was able to do that in the first 25 years of my life. Now, but my longevity of life has also gone up. Statistically, the probability of my father and grandfather surviving beyond the age of 50 was low. But statistically, I will survive at the minimum till 75. So what do I do for the next 30 years of my life? By the time you guys got around, maybe the frontiers of science will extend that to 100 years. So instead of 2, maybe most of you will have 3 to 4 careers. And therefore, at 45, I have to retrain myself, relearn myself, because I have another 25 years of productive life left in front of me. So what do you do? So the process of learning and then working is also over. And that is what entrepreneurship teaches you. Entrepreneurship is the only education field that we know right now where nobody can teach you, but you must self-learn. And that brings me to the point that education will also become a self-learning process. The old model where you first study, then get a job, then get married, and settle down, and then retire and die is over. I think the new cycle will be you probably start studying, then you work, then you get married, then you get divorced, then you start working again, then start learning again, and then maybe do it 3-4 times, marry again, and do that 3-4 times. No, but that is indeed going to be the reality. So therefore, the whole concept of education will in itself also change. And therefore, most of you must understand that entrepreneurship and skill development will not be two different things, but one side of the same coin. And therefore, you will have no option. Which brings me to my third point, which you slightly alluded to. It is not a matter of choice. There are no jobs that are coming. The jobs market will cease to exist. In my own industry, when I started investment banking in my late 90s, people in Wall Street used to say this was the only profession from where you could meet from lower middle class to the upper class in a short period of time, because you got paid very well. This is the only profession that I have seen die in front of my own eyes. Today, if you go to a top business school like I do and come out and join Wall Street, the probability that you will have a job for more than 5 years is statistically less than 75%. The very fact that as a Wall Street banker, you will make money is probably lower than if you join the government service. Because artificial intelligence and technology has completely finished the jobs in the financial services industry. And probably this is the only job from where you can now start in middle class and become lower middle class if you continue in this profession. Because today all stock trading is going to be done by computers, by artificial intelligence, which humans cannot compete with. And therefore so there are no jobs coming in the years to come. First, and therefore each one of you will be forced to become an entrepreneur at some point in your life, whether you like it or not. And therefore, if this is going to be your reality, then you must start getting prepared for it as soon as possible and develop both the skill sets and the emotional skill sets to be able to deal with the uncertainty of life. You will not have the luxury of one job for life. And that brings me to this point where you said that, computers cannot replace humans. Maybe you're right, but I was also of this view till a few years ago. But I'm confused right now, because the rate at which computers are actually starting to replicate human intelligence and even extending the boundaries of understanding human emotions is actually quite scary. And even though they may not be able to replace humans, they are now possessing a serious threat to making humans redundant. Now, humans, we are going into a world where there will be technology has brought about enhanced prosperity across the world. My own country is an example of that. When we started in India in 1947, our gross domestic product, or which is the sort of the income of our country, was just about $30 billion in 1947. By 2006-7, we had crossed $1 trillion of our GDP. We are among the 16 nations. There are only even today 16 countries in the world that have a GDP of $1 trillion. What took our country 60 years from 47 to become $1 trillion, then took our people only 7 years between 2007 to 2014 to become a $2 trillion GDP. And then from $2 trillion to $3 trillion, we have gone in 5 years. And in the next 10 years, in the next decade, by the time we end 2030, this country will be, GDP will be somewhere between $8 to $10 trillion. So we have a lot of prosperity coming in, but we have no jobs. We have 1 million people in this country who join the workforce every year, every month, but we have no jobs to give them. And we have a big political debate going on in our country. Governments get voted in and out, but nobody's able to create jobs. So therefore, I think that the prosperity of human race, as never experienced before, is going to be in your lifetimes juxtaposed with the redundancy of a job. And therefore, each one of you will have to invent and reinvent yourselves multiple times to stay relevant and to be able to do something productive with your life. Because one thing that is very true, as His Excellency mentioned, that human life cannot be alive without a meaning, without a purpose. Humans cannot live. Even when they were in the jungles and they were a Neanderthal man, they had a purpose to hunt. So and this is the biggest fear of technology, that technology is going to sap away purpose and meanings of our life. And that is why I think the skills as an entrepreneur become very, very important, because entrepreneurship is not just about making money or creating a business. I think it's also about learning the skill and the life skill of inventing and reinventing yourself. So a slightly different take, but with different open to questions.
We now invite questions. We just have 15 minutes, so probably quickly we can begin with the first round. May I request you all to please introduce yourself and address
Also give their country, which country they are from.
Yeah.
Somebody give them a mic.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. My name is Dina. I'm from Brunei. Thank you so much for the wonderful speeches. I really liked that we talked a lot about globalization, the fourth industrial revolution, and a lot of the AI. And I really think that's relevant to what is happening as well in Brunei, though not a lot of people are aware of it. And I was wondering what your views are on the effectiveness of skill development without the change in mindset, especially for the youth. We in Brunei are currently experiencing a high rate of youth unemployment, and we're kind of trying as best as we can to reduce that through multi-skilling, through participation in non-governmental organizations. But some of the challenges are changing the mindset of the youth. So I was wondering what your perspective on that. Thank you very much.
His Excellency, we'll just collect a couple of questions and then jointly you can respond to it. Any more questions?
Hello, I am Devsena Mishra, and I'm the promoter of Indian startup ecosystem, Transforming India. And I just have one input for the young minds of our ASEAN partners here. See, as Ambassador Sir rightly said, time is a precious resource, and you are the young mind. So whenever you will explore about India, try to explore the new India. Because in the last 5 years, we have transformed radically. Our Prime Minister has transformed our country so radically that if you will explore beyond 2014, you will find a little hope. But in the last 5 years, with the reform, perform, and transform mantra, there are lots of opportunities on entrepreneurship and skill development, and I mean, there's plethora of opportunities for every ASEAN country. And we, as an Indian, we are the largest growing major economy and a frontier of global opportunities. So we want you to pursue higher ambitions together. You have an opportunity to join hands with India and to look beyond ASEAN. I mean, each one of you has a unique potential to look beyond yourself. And when you have a partner like India, who has a vision of collective prosperity for you, you should join hand with us and make with India and look out for the global market. That's my input for all the young minds here that try to explore the new India. Don't look at the India from the old lenses. You will find little hope. But with new India, you will find lots of hopes and lots of opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Arunodhay Singh. I'm from India and I'm an entrepreneur myself. My question is on entrepreneurial mindset. India has predominantly and inherently Indians have been conservative and risk averse when it comes to between choosing doing a business and taking up a job. So much so that if it comes to choosing between a government job and a private job, they'll prefer a low-paying government job over a high-paying private job. So, and it's also because, though we have seen some positive trend in the recent past that more and more youth is getting into entrepreneurship and starting up, but there's a lot to be done. Also because there's a lot of pressure from the parental and the family side to take up jobs. So there's a lot of pressures which a youth has to deal with. What do you think can be done to bring this change and get the youth on the level of, or a higher level of starting up? My second part of the question is for His Excellency. We've recently seen a lot of growth in the entrepreneurship scenario in Thailand. So what do you think both the countries can learn from each other in this regard? Thank you.
So maybe I don't know which one to start first, but on the entrepreneurship in Thailand, there are different aspects, you know, but one is that own business, they don't pay any tax. So I see, like, you know, the roadside stalls, you know, they come in a Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, you know, park the car, open the tailgate, put out the table. And that, I mean, he's not poor, right? But they're not paying any taxes either. So that's one, you know, and independence. Okay, but we, like India, we're trying to bring everyone into the system as well, because, you know, you have to pay for you know, government budget. I mean, you have to pay for everyone. And otherwise, the civil servants are the only ones who pay 100% tax. And we are looking at financing more than before, you know, and the banks are also adapting to that. Now, coming back to one thing that I can say from my experience in government is that everything has happened before, meaning you can always learn from somebody else. There's nothing that is truly new. You know, you just have to look on the economic scale or the time scale and find another country like yours or in a similar situation before and what happened. And not all countries are more modern, more advanced than other countries in every aspect. For example, this phenomenon of people seeking government job, you know, that may be one part of India that is still a little bit conservative. You know, most of, like in Thailand now, it's more difficult for us to attract talent into government sector. We have to lure them by scholarships, you know, and then we get to a situation where I have young colleagues, you know, and they have to pay, for every year of scholarship, they have to pay 3 years of work. So one person who has a PhD, she found that she has to work for 30 years. And she feels that it's almost like modern day slavery, you know, because if you have to pay for, reimburse the government, it's an amount that is double or triple what the government paid, you know. So I said to my boss, this is akin to modern day slavery, you know. And then he said, well, the parents signed a contract, which makes it even more like modern day slavery, you know what I mean? No, this disturbs me a lot, but anyway, I'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So a private company, CP, you know, they invite some of these people to, you know, go and work for them, and they'll even pay in the government. And they said, no, I want to work for the public good, you know. But anyway, you can learn from other countries. There are always examples, okay? India will also change what you're saying, you know. I mean, working for government and so on and so forth. Now, I find that India will still, will be one of the world's engines of growth, you know, because of the sheer numbers of the population, the emerging middle class, the young people. These are people that will consume, you know, like we used to look at the Chinese market. They will absorb anything that you have, you know, you could, and it will not be enough if it is the right product for them. So India presents great opportunity for us, with AI or not, or whatever. But one thing that I wanted to pass on to my co-speaker, Mr. Doval, is that I think it's what he said is relevant to everyone, that as humans, we need to find a purpose and role in life. I'm approaching retirement. They might extend the retirement age because otherwise, because we're an aging society, more than 12% are over 60. Then these poor young people, the minority, will have to work and pay for healthcare and everything, So if they keep us working, we're still contributing to the taxes and so on. But anyway, it's important that, if you're going to live long, that after 60, you don't sit around until 85 waiting for when you die, right? So you have to find a purpose and therefore careers and so on and so forth. One thing that, like Brunei as well, I love your country. And I know we talk about the future after oil and so on and so forth. Brunei looks after their people so well that maybe they don't feel they need to do more because, government already provides a comfortable life. But in order to move forward, we need to, you can invest the wealth and so on and so forth. But so the issue is this: people are risk averse. And since you have had a career, which is very close to risk and so on, maybe you can tell us also how we manage risk, because life is full of risk.
Thank you. Excellency, I'll take your question in the second order. First, I'll answer his question. As I was telling you, that first you must understand that India was not historically a society that did not like entrepreneurship. Actually, we were an entrepreneurial society for civilizations. We were traders. That's why we have such huge amount of influences in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. Problem was that after about 1,000 years of slavery, once we got independence, we were heaped a policy of socialism which was completely non-Indian-like, right? And which was not very normal to what Indians are. And if many of you do not know that in the 60s and the 70s, the taxation rate in India was 102%. So actually, entrepreneurship business became a dirty word in this country. Politically, it still is. And everybody thought that who is an entrepreneur or a businessman is a crook. And actually they were crooks, because when you tax somebody at 102%, then the only way they can survive is by being crooks. They will either avoid taxes or they will have to liquidate their households to pay. So we went through some warped policies in this country for a few years, and around 91 we changed. But going back to your old point, the mindset has remained the same. Now, on top of that mindset, you layer an possibility which was uncertainty. We were a poor country. As I gave you by numbers, we started only with a corpus of $30 billion, and only up to 2007, we had not reached 1 trillion, so we were so many people. So capital was scarce. So what happened was that the tax structure, the structure in society led to a situation where governments and capitalists actually did not let the society allow the distribution of wealth. And a normal person from a normal middle class or a lower middle class or poor became very risk averse, and hence the proclivity towards government jobs. Because they said they traded safety and security for upward mobility. But this was, as I said, very unlike Indians, because if you see Indians that left the shores of India became very upwardly mobile. They went to different countries, they excelled themselves. So India is a very upwardly and aspirational society. Now slowly, as prosperity comes to us, and I've explained we are going to hit a tsunami of prosperity, we are going to change. We still don't know how to change, because change takes a little bit time. Because we are still straggled with this mindset of scarcity, we still are trying to overcome that. You see in our political discourse today, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about jobs, but no government is willing to be identified with a businessman, because we are still trying to fight those demons of our past. But we will. As prosperity will come, as new and more legitimate businesses will come, as the old crony capitalism will die, a new Indian society will be created, where, as you said, our new youth once they have security, will trade growth and will not trade aspiration for security. They will want to move. And that's the new India that we are going into. Now, in that new India, and the part of the answer to your question, sir, with my own life, is the ability to, which creates entrepreneurship, is the ability, very simply, the ability to take risks and to ability and the acceptance to fail. So what I was lucky was that, you know, I came from a middle class family, but very early in my life, I was reasonably successful because I could work overseas, I could work in the US. So, and my bottom line was very low because from where I came, so, you know, I already had a house to stay. So I could mentally take the risks to fail. And because my parents had seen a little bit of the world, my primary circle was okay if I failed. So if I did not succeed as a businessman, I always knew that I had the academic qualifications or the CV to easily go and get a well-paying job. So I could take the risk. Because I could take the risk of failure, I could continue to become an entrepreneur and continue to go from one level of success to the other. But because I had a fallback. Now, I think this is exactly the only practical recipe for entrepreneurship. Unless we have affordable, we can pay the affordable cost, we cannot become entrepreneurs because then we trade, as I said, our security for aspiration. We say, okay, as our societies, and this is true for ASEAN, this is also true, as our societies become more prosperous, the risk appetite of our societies to take risk with our children's future will also become higher. Because children can fail and society will still accept. That is what made United States and the West move very fast. Because of colonialism and other factors, it wasn't that, you know, in old times, if my father had failed as a businessman, we'd all die of hunger. But today, if I fail, my children would still be able to go to school and still have a reasonable life. Because we can take that, as a family, take a higher degree of risk, we can become entrepreneurs and try new things. So I think we are moving globally as a world. Technology has accelerated that pace. Certain countries like the ASEAN, even big countries like India, are now in that situation where as our economy, it doesn't grow for everybody at the same time, but more and more society. So today you will find that from cities, we are not able to find talent to go to government jobs. It is really grade 2, and villages that are actually aspiring. But once they got government jobs, their kids will not seek government jobs because they will want to try new things. That's exactly what happened to us. It's just a generational shift. And therefore, my point to all of you is that, you know, very often, going back to the lady from Brunei, very often, you know, when do you never drive in life by looking at the rear view mirror. Problem with life is that we are all victims of our parents' experiences. We all live with the past and and are unable to see the future because we are looking at the rear view mirror. I think the youth of today, and every generational of youth has had this challenge. But what the youth of today have an advantage is that the pace at which your opportunities in front of you is much higher than it existed for every generation. So don't make the classic mistake of looking at the future at the rear view mirror. As they say, you know, you can't judge the future of the family by looking at the grandparents. So similarly, you can't judge your future by looking at the risks of your parents. Don't let those mindsets, it's only a mindset issue. It's not of the risk of your parents and their generation affect your outlook towards life.
I'm afraid we'll not be able to take the second round of question because we have to wind off this session and they'll prepare the hall for the next session right away. Many thanks to His Excellency and Mr. Doval for your remarks, experiences, and sharing your experiences and anecdotes. And many thanks to all the participants for patient hearing and also making very important interventions. With this, we end this session, and right away we'll begin with the next session at 10:30.